The journey to Rome was a lesson in the harsh reality of the ancient world. The history books Max had read spoke of the glory of the Republic, the marble pillars, and the noble senators in pristine white togas. They didn't mention the dust, the heat, or the smell. "It smells like rotting cabbage and wet dog," Max commented on the third day as they crested the final hill. "That," Sylvia said, chewing on a piece of tough dried meat, "is the smell of civilization. It is the smell of money and power." Below them lay the sprawling beast that was Rome. It was chaotic, magnificent, and terrifying. The Tiber River snaked through the city like a muddy vein. The 7 hills were crowned with temples and villas, but the valleys were choked with wooden tenements that looked ready to collapse. Smoke rose from 1,000 fires, blending with the haze of the afternoon sun. They walked along the Via Appia, the quote, Queen of Roads. It was a bustling artery of the empire. Max saw things that made his historian's heart race. A legion marching in perfect unison, their armor clattering. A merchant from Egypt selling exotic birds. A group of slaves carrying a litter with curtains drawn tight. "So," Max asked, trying to gather intelligence, "what's the news in the city? Who's winning the big game? Who's stabbing whom in the Senate?" Sylvia glanced at him sideways. "You ask dangerous questions for a foreigner. The city is tense. Caesar has defeated Pompey. He is the dictator now. Some say he wants to be king. The Senate is afraid." "Caesar." Max nodded. "Right. The big man himself. And his family? His nephew? Octavian?" Sylvia frowned, puzzled. "Who?" Max paused. "Octavian. Gaius Octavius. Caesar's grandnephew. The heir." Sylvia shrugged, clearly uninterested in the genealogy of the elite. "I heard of an Octavius. A sickly boy. The Attia family was traveling by sea to Spain to join Caesar's campaign last month." "Yes, that's right," Max said, recalling the history files downloaded into his brain. "He joins Caesar, impresses him, and gets named heir in the will." "No," Sylvia said flatly. The ship sank. Max stopped dead in the middle of the road. A merchant pushing a cart of amphorae yelled at him in colorful, vulgar Latin, but Max didn't hear it. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What did you say?" Max whispered. "The ship sank in a storm off the coast," Sylvia repeated, bored by the topic. "Everyone drowned. The boy, the crew. It was a small tragedy, but news travels fast when noble blood is spilled." "Why do you care?" A cold chill washed over Max, colder than the vacuum of space. "Octavian is dead. The first emperor of Rome. The man who created the Pax Romana. The architect of the empire. The foundation of Western civilization. Dead. Before he could even begin." "Error," Max whispered to himself, tapping his temple. "Critical temporal error. If Octavian was dead, history was broken. The future he came from, the languages, the borders, the culture, might not even exist anymore. Without Augustus, Rome might fall into endless civil war after Caesar's death. The Dark Ages could start 1,000 years early." "You look like you've seen a ghost," Sylvia said, poking him in the ribs with a stiff finger. "Worse," Max muttered, his mind racing. "I'm looking at a dead end." He needed a drink. He needed a plan. But mostly he needed to verify this. "Sylvia," Max said, his voice serious, grabbing her shoulder, "I need to find out everything about that shipwreck. And I need to know if there are any survivors. Any at all. Why do you care about a dead patrician boy? Is he kin?" "Because," Max said, formulating a desperate, insane plan that would violate every protocol General Vance had given him. "If he's dead, I'm out of a job. But if he's not, or if we can find someone who looks like him." He didn't finish the sentence. The idea was madness. Treason against time itself. But it was the kind of madness Max Stone thrived on. They entered the city gates. The noise was deafening, a cacophony of shouting, hammering, and braying animals. Max looked at the teeming masses of people, slaves, soldiers, whores, politicians. Somewhere in this city, history was waiting to be rewritten, and Max held the pen. The Subura district was the armpit of Rome. It was dark, smoky, and smelled of stale wine, sweat, and desperation. It was a maze of narrow alleys and leaning buildings where the sun rarely touched the ground. It was the perfect place for lowlifes, which meant it was exactly where Max needed to be. He and Sylvia sat in a corner of a tavern called the Drunken Centaur. Max was nursing a cup of watered-down wine that tasted like vinegar, while Sylvia counted the coins Max had given her, gold aurii from the future that were chemically identical to Roman currency. "You have too much gold for a man with no name," Sylvia noted, biting one of the coins to test its authenticity. "And you ask too many questions about dead boys." "Inheritance," Max lied smoothly. And curiosity. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the entrance. The wooden door banged open, and a skinny teenager burst in, knocking over a table of dice players. He was fast, weaving through the angry patrons like a rat. "Get back here, you little thief," a voice roared from the street. The boy vaulted over a bench, landing right in front of Max's table. He had a loaf of hard bread clutched to his chest, his face smeared with soot and dirt. He looked terrified, breathing hard, his ribs showing through his rags. But it was his eyes that stopped Max's heart. Max froze. He grabbed the boy's arm before he could dart away. The boy snarled, feral and wild, pulling a rusty, jagged knife from his belt. "Let go, or I'll gut you." "Easy, kid," Max said. With a practiced motion, he twisted the boy's wrist, applying pressure to a nerve point. The knife clattered to the floor. Max ignored the weapon. He reached out and wiped a smudge of dirt from the boy's cheek. Under the grime, the bruises, and the malnutrition, the bone structure was undeniable. The sharp, aquiline nose. The wide-set, intelligent eyes. The weak chin. He looked exactly like the marble bust of the young Octavian that sat in the British Museum. The resemblance was uncanny. It was impossible. "What's your name?" Max demanded, his voice intense. "Leo." The boy spat, struggling against Max's grip. "Let me go. They're going to kill me." The pursuers caught up. 3 big brutes, clearly gang enforcers, blocked the tavern doorway. They wore red sashes. "Hand over the rat, stranger." He stole from the red serpents. Sylvia sighed, a long, weary sound. She stood up and cracked her knuckles. "I hate interrupting my drink." "Wait," Max said, holding up a hand. He looked at the thugs. "How much for the bread? And the boy's debt?" The leader blinked, confused by the question. 5 denarii. And a finger for the insult. Max reached into his pouch and tossed a gold coin onto the table. It spun on its edge, before settling with a heavy, resonant clink. It was worth 50 denarii, easily. "Keep the change," Max said, his eyes hard. "The boy is mine." The thugs looked at the gold, then at Sylvia's hand resting on the hilt of her sword, and finally at the strange, dangerous confidence in Max's eyes. They were bullies, not warriors. The leader snatched the coin. "He's your problem now," the thug grunted, and they retreated into the night. Leo stared at Max, bewildered, rubbing his wrist. "Why? Why did you help me?" Max looked at the boy. A thief? A liar? A coward? A nobody from the gutters. But he had the face of an emperor. "Leo," Max said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Do you want to be rich? Do you want to be powerful? Do you want to rule the world?" Leo looked at him like he was crazy. "I just want to eat." "Stick with me, kid," Max said, patting him on the shoulder. "And you'll never go hungry again." Max looked at Sylvia. "I have a new mission." "Which is?" "Project Augustus," Max said. "We're going to make a king out of a pauper."